All right, so I'm going to start recording because I have 4 o'clock. So this is we're officially in session now. Clay, if you want to walk everybody through this, we'll get going.
I will. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first Faculty Senate via Zoom session. And I'm going to explain the processes that we'll be using in this interface to conduct the Faculty Senate meeting. So you'll notice that everyone has been muted upon entry, and you also don't have the ability to unmute yourself. Right? So the chair, Andrew, will be unmuting each person as they need to speak. So one thing that might be helpful is if the top right-hand corner of your Zoom interface, there's a way to toggle between gallery view and speaker view. And if you choose on gallery view, you'll see all the webcams at once in a small size. If you choose on speaker view, then whoever's speaking will be highlighted and take up the majority of your screen space. So it's really best for this meeting probably to maintain speaker view so you can see the face of the person who's speaking. Via chat. There is a chat that is enabled for this meeting. However, the only chat function available to you is to chat the host, which is Andrew. So if you have something you need to get to his attention, then through a chat, then you have that option for you. And I will also be monitoring the chat in case there's something that needs Andrew's attention. I'll raise that to him as well. But there's no public chat or private chat between members on this call. Let's talk about turn taking. So the way that we're going to have turn taking is by using the hand raising feature in Zoom. So if you click on your participants panel and you see the list of all 31 participants, below there you'll see some different non-verbal feedback clues. You'll see a green check for yes, a red check for no, a go slower and go faster button. Next to that, you'll possibly see a button that says more. If you click on more, you'll see an ability to raise your hand. So if you would like to raise your hand to request to be unmuted, you can select raise your hand feature there. And then in the course of time, Andrew will unmute you. You'll have the floor. And then at the end, he can mute you back and then lower your hand. So that's how we're going to do turn taking.
So can I just have everyone just raise your hand just so we can make sure that that is working for everyone? You can see the raise your hand. Great.
Fantastic. And then we'll have the ability to lower everyone's hand. We can try clear all, Andrew, or there we go. Perfect. So that's how we'll do hand raising. Thank you very much. The last thing we need to talk about is voting. Okay. So we're going to be using the same types of controls. And of course, remember, this is only for voting senators. So please only make use of these controls during a vote if you're a senator. The way that we're going to vote is by using the green check mark yes for aye and the red X no for no. And then if you look under the more column, you'll see a few other emojis, and there's one that's a coffee mug, which is called take a break, and we'll use that for abstain. So those will be our 3 voting options for senators only: yes, no, or coffee mug for abstain. And then once the vote is recorded, then that will be cleared out by Andrew, and we can proceed on with the next bit of business. So I believe that's all the settings that we needed to go through in order to get started. And so I'll hand the meeting back over to Andrew.
All right, Clay, we have a couple of questions that are popping up to me. So let's see here.
And I don't have the ability to see the questions because it's only chatting to the host. So yeah,
right, right. So this is where we're gonna have to get used to. All right, I'm gonna Lori asked a question, so I'm gonna unmute Lori. Lori, can you?
Yes, Clayton, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great, hello. So I was 2 minutes late and I came in on you saying green arrow, blue arrow, whatever arrow to vote, vote, and I see no arrows.
Of course.
So
So I'm sure it's, I was late, so I missed part of it. I beg your pardon.
Lori, do you have your managed participants, your participants panel showing?
I do.
Okay.
And do you see the list of everybody's name that's in the meeting?
Would you like me to click on participants in order
Yes.
to do that?
Please do.
All right. Why, look at there. There's a green arrow. There's a red cross. Yeah. Okay, got it.
And the coffee mug is under more, and so is the hand raise.
And the coffee mug delineates what?
Abstain from a vote.
Abstain.
Taking a break.
Got it. Thanks very much. Sorry I was late.
No problem. All right. And then Melissa looks like she had a question.
Hi, Clay. I just wanted to find out if the voting would be recorded in the recording, if the chat stuff would be recorded. Oh, Clay's muted.
Oh.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was muted. Neither the chat nor the voting will be recorded. The chat can be saved as a text file, but the nonverbal cues, including the votes, will not be recorded or saved. So it's going to require us to manually record that vote before we clear it out.
Okay, so I'm going to need us to go really slow on that part so I can get all that down.
So since we can, since it records it and it will stay there until I clear it, just don't take down your vote after you voted. And we can just have, the yes, the yays, nays, and abstains all at the same time. And that will give Melissa time to jot them all down. And Melissa, I'll always check with you before we move on.
Okay.
What you need. Okay. Any other questions from anyone about just the general procedures and how we'll be doing this? Raise your hand if you do. All right, I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going to move on to our next order of business. So this is where we get to actually test this system out. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 9th? All right, so we have, I think I saw Lori first and Michael Stanfill second. Oh, and see, let me just double check that. Lori, was that a first?
Yes, I clicked on the little icon, raised my hand,
Perfect.
and I moved to approve the minutes from whatever the date was that you just said.
All right, great. All right, and then Michael, can I confirm that you were seconding?
Yes, I second that.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion from anyone about the minutes? Any corrections? Raise your hand if you have a question or a correction for the minutes. Not seeing any. So therefore, if you are in favor of approving the minutes, please vote yes. If you oppose approving the minutes, please vote no. And if you are going to abstain from the minutes, please choose the coffee cup. And Melissa, I'm unmuting you just to so that you can let me know when you're good.
Okay, I'm really just recording all the abstentions because otherwise it'll take me 12 years to type all this up. I don't see any no's, and I see abstaining. I've got Parker, Phillips, and Yamaguchi.
Okay.
and then you and me.
All right. So you think we're good on that?
I think we're good.
All right. Thank you all. I'm going to clear that. And then it's up to President Schott, whose name I need to find here. All right. I'm going to unmute President Schott.
Okay, can everybody hear me? We're
think-
good, all right. This is exciting. I haven't taken part in this big of a meeting yet. Of course, I'm sure you are all meeting your classes and getting used to this. Believe me, I've been plenty of meetings, just not with quite this many people. So a few updates. The incident response team is continuing to meet daily. I believe they're still meeting twice a day. And they are really focused on creating a safe environment for our students and for all of us. At least as far as we know now, we still are very fortunate not to have any cases of COVID-19 on our campus, either in students or employees. Many students have moved out of the residence halls, as you all know. We still have about 130 living in a residence hall or in student and family housing. We expect maybe a few more to move in this week. And we have about 110 students still getting food from the Hawk. And of course, that is takeout only. We have a couple of students who are in isolation. I don't remember details about that. They're not confirmed to have COVID, but we are taking care of students individually, getting them food, delivering them food if for some reason they're unable to leave their rooms. We have about 300 employees who are working from home, and we're all seeing how that goes. I'm just like the rest of you. I've got family here, I've got pets here, and fortunately, I'm fortunate that most of my kids are grown now. I know many of you have small children, they're home from school, you're trying to work and take care of them at the same time. Believe me, I remember those days when I worked from home when my kids were little. And it's both rewarding and can cause you to pull your hair out and maybe hopefully not pull any of theirs out. I want to really extend my thanks to all of you for working so hard over the last 2 weeks to get ready for the start of classes today. I know it was a huge amount of work, more for some of you who had never done any of it than for others, but for everyone. It's been a huge work and addition at the very same time that you're dealing with your own fears, concerns, grief over not being able to see students and colleagues. And I think we're all feeling that way. So I just want to acknowledge that and really thank you for all that you are doing to help this term go as well as possible for our students and for each other. I want to give a special shout out to Clay and Hart and Bill, everybody at Cattle who have worked so hard in terms of assisting folks, and also the IT staff. They have been just working overtime. And I'm sure we couldn't have done any of this without all of those folks. I'm really glad we extended spring break a week. I can't imagine having to try to have done all this just 1 week. I want to remind you to go to the COVID-19 website if you haven't been there recently. If you did get away a little bit over spring break, you might have missed an email. We have been trying to over communicate. And so there are a lot of emails there that we have sent out to students and other groups, and you can just go and review them in case you missed one or you don't want to go try to find it in your inbox somewhere. And we're adding information there and trying to keep the information updated. I can tell you personally, it's a constant frustration to me when I feel like we've missed a step in communicating. Or maybe we send out a message that was meant for all students and it goes out to all employees instead, and you all get to see my kitty cats and everybody. We have to be kind to each other and really live in an attitude of grace, I think. So I'll get back to that in a minute. I'm sure that finances are on folks' minds. We're waiting to see what SOU will get as a result of the CARES Act that Congress passed. The American Council on Education did their analysis, and they put out a list of what they anticipated every university would get. But we don't know how accurate that is. A lot of the guidance is still being developed. The Congress passes a bill and then people have to figure out how to really implement it. And that is still being worked out. ACE estimated that we would get about 3.5 million. And that would be fabulous. We would be very pleased if that is what we got. But we don't have clarity around how that money will flow, when the money will flow. So we're just waiting to find out more on that and working with the networks that we have to try to get that intel. We also, given the emergency and the disaster declarations by the governor and the city, we will be eligible for assistance from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, but we don't know how that will work either. One thing we did, you all know Ryan Schnobrook, who's our auditor. I got the approval from the board because he works for the board and me. I got their approval to refocus his time. And so Ryan is helping the rest of the team really code and track expenses so that we will be able to have very good records that we can use to submit to FEMA for that emergency funding when that time comes. We're hoping that we'll have more definite financial information in 2 to 3 weeks. We want to get through add drops, see what happens with enrollment. We want to get the Relief Act information, and we want a little bit more insight into what we think might be happening for next fall, although that is really a very, very fuzzy crystal ball right now. We are sort of planning different scenarios depending on what happens. So I don't want you to think that we're just sitting around waiting to get the information. We kind of have ideas of what might happen and how much we might get or not get. And we're doing some short, medium, and long-term scenario planning based upon that. If any of you have ideas of better ways to do things, I'd be happy to hear them. But for right now, that's sort of where we are and the best that we can do. I promise you that as soon as we get additional information, we will pass that on to you. I'd love to be able to give you more certainty and tell you, oh, this is gonna happen, or we're gonna have to do X, or we don't have to worry, and we're just not there yet. But as soon as we are, we'll get that information out. Otherwise, I just wish you the best with this highly unusual term. And as I said earlier, we're all under a lot of stress right now. And I just want to encourage you to be kind to yourselves and to others and to our students. We're balancing a lot, and we're not going to be perfect. We never are. We may be a little less perfect this term, but we're going to give it our very, very best. You all are just as committed to our students as you were when you were meeting with them in person. I and my team are just as committed to helping this university get through all this and do the very best we can for all of our employees, all of our students, and for our larger community. Parenthetically, I have reached out to the mayor and the chamber and others to say, hey, Right now, we're in the midst of all this, but there will come a time to really talk about economic recovery. And SOU and Ashland are so closely connected. Let's really think hard about how we can help each other recover and be even stronger and be better and be even better situated for a 21st century economy and society than we are now. So be gentle with yourselves and with your students, and we will get through this. And someday we'll all be back seeing each other in person. So thanks for all you're doing. I'll take any questions if Andrew will unmute anybody.
Thanks, Linda. Lori had a question about how many students are usually living in the residence halls. You gave us some numbers about what we have right now. How does that compare?
Let's see. I had from Greg about how many. We've had about 450 move out since March 6th. So I don't know the total numbers. We generally say that we have about 30% of our students living on campus. And it depends on whether you're looking at, residence halls, student family housing, Madrone. I can get that for you, but it's clearly a huge financial hit for our auxiliary operations. But we believe that the CARES Act recovery money will enable us to recoup some of those losses.
Okay. Lori, does that cover your question?
Yes, thank you. And Linda, you don't have to go out of your way to get me more information. I just wanted to have a ballpark idea about those numbers.
Thanks. Anyone else have any questions for Linda? Not seeing any hands. All right, so with that, we will move on to Sue, if I can find her. Oh, there she is.
Thank you.
There
Hi,
you go.
everybody. Welcome back, more or less. It's good to see you all, Brady Bunch-like. So I don't have much to add. Linda really spoke well for me about thanking you all for all the incredible amount of work that you've been doing. So I would echo those thanks and just say that I couldn't be more proud of all of you, proud to be your colleagues, and also to be able to support you in any way you need to be. We're here to help. I've been meeting with the directors for each of the divisions as a group and individually for, I don't know, Lee, 5-6 times a week it seems like, but maybe not that much. So we're trying to get out in front of any issues that we need to try to head off. But I think generally, I checked in with Matt Stillman today, and ESC it seems to be feeling about right. The regular number of student calls coming in with pretty normal questions seems to be the case. I'm optimistic that the technology is going to continue to support us, and I would also thank CADL and IT, explicitly call them out for all the work that they've been doing, really 24/7. They are wonderful colleagues, and I know that you've been getting to know them in ways that you didn't before. So thank you for reaching out to those folks. The last thing I'll say is just that I appreciate the fact that Andrew and I were able to create a document together to send out. It probably had way too much information, but we were trying to over communicate in the spirit of Linda's comment. But as you find things questionable or things that you don't have the answers to, just send those to both of us and we'll make sure to capture that information and then maybe send out another communication in a couple of weeks. We're posting all those communications up on the COVID-19 website. So if so people can access any of those emails at that site. I think Linda mentioned that already. Just again, happy that you're here in virtual reality, and just let us know what we can do from the Provost office. And I can take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Sue. Brian sent me a message asking, will there be an all chairs directors meeting this term?
Yes, so we are scheduled, it should be on the calendar for, I believe, next Wednesday. Brian, if you want to take a peek, grab my phone, somebody talk while I'm doing something here. It should be on the calendar for Wednesday afternoon. We have, I think Melissa Anderson will be on the agenda to help us get more familiar with some of the work that the task force on student evaluations has been working on, and present that, get some feedback from chairs about that. Are you still on, Melissa, for that? I think you are.
I gotta unmute Melissa.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I haven't got the invite from Patrick yet, but
Okay.
I am ready to do it. So
We'll send it out today. We just met, our staff met today. And then I think really having our staff available from our office just to answer questions and get a sense of where your concerns are, where the little fires are starting to pop up, and see what we can do to help and support you in that regard. I will be happy to take other agenda items from chairs if you would like to send those to me, but we really want to try to be responsive to what you're seeing in the immediate short term in this first week. So we'll see you all on Wednesday of next week.
Thank you. Linda, you had something to add?
All you chairs.
I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I'll put this out in a message a little later, but I did want you all to know that we have not lost track of a response and real work in response to the incidents of racism that occurred on the campus prior to spring break. We are exploring, everything got changed. The whole world has shifted, of course. So right now we're looking at what is available for virtual types of training as a first step. We know it won't be enough. We know, and it won't be the only thing. But we are starting with Exec Council next week. We'll have some virtual training that we will do with that group. And then we'll move on from there. So be assured, it's not been forgotten. It's a high priority. And we'll be rolling something out. So stay tuned on that.
Thank you, Linda.
I have one more thing just to add. You will be seeing information about Navigate trainings. And that for us now will be an extremely important tool for us to be able to communicate with students and keep them retained and connected and engaged. So part of it will be the app that some of you have been using already and your SSCs have been using. We had planned to roll out the predictive analytics starting winter term, which we did, but we accelerated it very much last week, and you'll see an email or probably a few emails asking you to sign up for some trainings. The more we can plug into this technology right now, I think the better for retention for us. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Sue. Any other questions for Sue before we move on? I'm not seeing any raised hands. All right, I'm going to move on to Brittany. Brittany, you should be unmuted now.
Yeah. So just following real quick what Linda was talking about with the incidents this past term, we actually are still continuing to work with the Multicultural Commons and the development of that in the Stevenson Union. So we had a meeting at the end of the term just with a few people, meaning like I would say there was probably 20 to 30 people. It was a decent turnout. But we're going to have a town hall virtually through Zoom on Thursday, April 16th. And I already think I have about 20 people RSVP'd to that. So hopefully that will be a good turnout. I don't have a ton of things, but I would just say, if so you all know, I'm sure you know about the 20% reduction that we did on the student fees, which student fees is everything from rec center, technically building fees and health service fees and the green tag fee. So with all of those, we did an initial 20% reduction, which is about $132. And then we will try and find that like second round of reductions, but that all plays into how many students came back this term. I know some students may have just taken the term off because online is just not the best for some people. And then how many people are paying the fee, how many came back, and where we can find the cuts, because like a lot of you know, it's salary positions and student employment. And the big push what we were doing is to not lose our student employment. So not losing student employment means still having to spend some of the student fee and still needing to use that. So we'll see where we find the savings and how much that really is. I would just love to like remind you all that I'll start the first, like when this first happened, obviously there was a lot of questions from students, but the response I've gotten from everyone is that SOU and student government was incredibly transparent. We answered every question very quickly, and if they had one, we tried to answer it as best as we could while knowing that we still were just trying to figure it out as, you know, people were throwing new orders at us, government. But basically, everyone was saying that SOU was so transparent and they felt so supported by everyone, and I was just getting emails constantly saying thank you so much, like this is really helpful to me. So I just want you all to know that like students at SOU feel that. And then I told a few people in administration about this, but I thought I would echo it here for you to know what a great campus we're a part of. The Oregon Student Association that we're currently a part of is a shared organization throughout the state of like different universities and student governments as well as just students. And we have been updating very frequently about how each campus is handling the COVID response, right? SOU is shining brighter than every school right now. Most of the student body presidents I've spoken to, their administration are not really letting them in the meetings to talk about it. They're not really in the loop, and they're not really happy with some of the things that like maybe closing, or they haven't done student employment, or the refunds. A lot of schools haven't given much thought to any of that. So I was really happy to really give the SOU response and say, well, look at all the great things we're doing. And I had so much information because I've been in every meeting, I've been on every email thread. So SOU is handling this very well, and I'm really hoping that the HEC notices this, legislators notice this, other students notice how a school handles and treats their students in these situations. And I definitely know those in the room at the OSA meetings, I think we're a little bit jealous that SOU has this connection with their students and their staff and faculty. And then the last thing, because I got a question about it today from a few students, in terms of textbooks, I think some students are, I'm sure you all know this because they're probably emailing you frantic. I think students are confused about if the bookstore is even open or where to even get their textbooks, because Amazon is like prioritizing what is, you know, shipped out at a decent rate. And I don't know if textbooks fall under that priority. And then I'm not sure about other book companies, how quick they're getting books. So just know that that's what I'm getting from students, is they're concerned where to even buy their books and how quick it'll get to them. But I'm sure you know this, but I just wanted that there. That's it.
Thanks, Brittany. It looks like Mark Siders has a question.
Hey, Brittany, what happened to the funds that were allocated? We had a big trip planned in our department, cost several $1,000s out of student fees. Is that refunded or?
Yeah, it's probably, so all of the students' account right now, everything's incidental fee is frozen. Nothing is supposed to be used spring term at all except for student employment, salaries, and our contracts and memberships. So that means like all clubs, if you're referring to like the hospitality and tourism, nothing is supposed to be spent at all spring term right now. Everyone is only supposed to be doing like free remote programs. So my guess is that's rolling back into the incidental fee reserve. And because we're in a deficit, it's probably just paying off our deficit right now.
Good.
But yeah, nothing is getting spent. Everything's frozen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Brittany? I'm not seeing any hands raised. So Brittany, just would like to thank you on behalf of faculty for your great leadership, and also on your end, you know, really being involved with the administration and helping to communicate with students and easing this process for them. You've been great.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I muted myself, sorry. I need to find Kimball. Where is Kimball at? There he is, okay.
Hello, Senators. So to answer your first question, that is the album cover for Yes, Union. I decided that was more interesting for you to look at than my bookshelves. But anyway, the Senate Advisory Council did meet last week, virtually. And as you can imagine, we were mostly talking about just adjusting at the leadership level, as well as, of course, in all ways that the campus is adjusting to this obviously scary and crazy and unexpected new environment. I don't think there's a whole lot that I need to tell you that won't come up one way or another. That the two things that come to my mind are kind of an elections committee report. Between Melissa and me and April, I think we can assure you that the faculty personnel committee election is done and all of the chair elections are done. There's a couple of lingering issues on chairs, but they don't exactly relate to elections. And then we have to do and will do the senator elections in the spring, somehow, some way. The other thing that was a bit of business that isn't going to directly come up on the agenda later is that I reported on behalf of the task force working on post-tenure review that our group met with the group working on FPAR reform. I can't remember how much of this has come up for the whole Senate. I forget who I've talked to, but the gist of it is where we're leaving things, and frankly where the FPAR group is leaving it, is they want to bring their suggestions to the Senate in concert with our suggestions. So we're all waiting on our group anyway to present to the Senate something on post-tenure review criteria. And their reasoning is pretty solid, that no question that FPARs will be a part of what we recommend in terms of post-tenure review as well. The other things that came up really will come up in this meeting. We talked at length about some of the concerns that are in the last agenda item in this Senate meeting, and were part of the omnibus announcement that Provost Walsh made. And that is concerns about, what happens to things like teaching evaluations this spring, what happens to things like promotion and tenure guidelines, trips canceled, and so forth. So that is going to come up for a broader discussion later, but we decided that needed to be addressed as soon as possible. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Kimball. Any questions for Kimball? Not seeing any. All right, now I gotta move my Zoom window out of the way to see my next agenda item.
I suppose you need to mute me.
Yeah. Let's see how I mute Kimball. All right. I need a second monitor here. All right. So next we're on the academic policies that were introduced on March 9th. So I guess I will ask if there is anyone who would like to make a motion to approve those policies. We have Lori, I believe. Just confirm. Lori, are you making a motion?
I am moving that we approve the academic policies introduced on March 9th.
All right, thank you. And Brian, was your green vote a second?
Seconded.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Does anyone have any questions? Please raise your hand if you have a question or comments about those policies before I open it up for a vote. All right, I'm not seeing any hands go up. So in that case, I'll open it up for voting. Please indicate yes, no, or coffee for abstain if you are not going to vote in favor of passing the academic policies that were introduced on March 9th. And Melissa, I've unmuted you so that you can let me know when you have what you need.
Okay, I'm just writing down the abstentions and no's if there are any. I don't see any no's, and I see Parker and Yamaguchi as the only abstentions besides you.
Okay. I'm seeing a
assuming-
couple people who haven't voted yet.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky.
So I guess, do we just count people who are not voting as abstentions then, I guess?
That gets hard because, let's see. Some of them are non-voters. Jeremy stepped away, I think. So
Okay.
I think Jeremy might be the only one
Okay.
who didn't vote. So I'm gonna put him down as Carlton stepped away.
Okay.
Okay,
So you're good?
I'm good.
And I think the motion passes then?
He does.
All right. Great. All right. Thank you all. I'm going to clear that. And we'll move on to the next item. All right. So next we have the graduate curriculum introduced on March 9th. Do we have a motion to approve the graduate curriculum? Lori, once again, for the first. Do we have a second? Again, Brian. All right, I'm going to clear those then. Any further discussion on the graduate curriculum from March 9th? Any questions about that curriculum? All right, not seeing anything. So all those in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, please vote no. And any abstentions, please grab your coffee cup.
Okay. So I'm still getting Parker, Yamaguchi, and Gay for the abstentions, and Carlton is still away.
Okay, so we're good to clear it. All right, so the motion passes. Thank you. And now I believe we have some new graduate curriculum to discuss. And is Jody our representative for graduate curriculum, or do we have someone else? Let me see who's here. I mean, Jody, you there? Oh. Jody, can you hear me? Oh, sorry, I did the wrong person. I clicked on. Oh, there we go.
What else I can get Brian Fedoruk to do? Yes, I'm here.
Are you our representative for Graduate Council, or is there someone else here who's also?
I am the representative for Graduate Council today.
Okay.
So we're presenting two sets of recommendations. One is relevant to the Holistic Education Certificate. I think you've all had a chance to read it for now a couple of weeks, and I can answer any questions or take any questions back to the program or to the representatives from the program who proposed it. The other changes to SLI, which is the World Languages and Culture Curriculum. I do want to make one note there. You have 3 different documents. 2 refer to specific changes that pertain either to French or Spanish, and then there's a third document that's just sort of catalog copy. We do not have some pieces of that fully approved by Graduate Council yet, and Undergraduate Curriculum Committee hasn't reviewed it yet. And that may have been what Anna was gesticulating about, I'm not sure. So good gesticulating, Anna. So I would ask that we not vote on the catalog copy, but just on the changes to the 2 pieces of curriculum, French and Spanish. In terms of holistic education, the program has proposed what they feel has been something that has kind of been a long time coming, given the work that William Green and some other folks in education have done around holistic education. You may know that there's a conference, there's a Center for Holistic Education. The program reports that they've had a significant amount of interest in the community, both locally as well as in the disciplinary community within which they're embedded. They feel it would be a very powerful tool to draw folks to the region if we ever are allowed to travel again. Particularly because there are not very many programs that address this curriculum. They feel as though it would likely bring other folks who are non-degree seeking and would likely want to have a conversation about this being a standalone certificate. We sent it back once for some additional content related to the curriculum, related to demand, but unanimously supported it, and would look forward to hearing your thoughts or comments.
All right, great. Anna, you have a question?
No.
Oh. So I should lower your hand? All right. Brian does have a question now. Brian, you there?
I'm here. Can
All
you
right.
hear me?
Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So for Jody, can you explain what the academic probation petition is? It's already in the catalog, and nonverbals.
No. Well, I was just thinking, oh, I forgot to mention that. So I'm not entirely certain. That's not a catalog change. Well, it is and it isn't. This isn't something that I think Senate needs to vote on. However, at the urging of Carol Ferguson, well, let me step back a couple of pieces. We have a bunch of graduate programs that have processes in place to discontinue a student or to expect that student step out or step back from their expected progress because they aren't succeeding. And they communicate that to their programs in different ways, but we don't have a probation policy in most graduate programs. MBA has one, Now Education has one, nor do we have a transcript notation or another banner function that would support a student being on probation. So it's really an internal conversation. We're trying to address that and make it a little bit more structured. So each graduate program has been asked to build into its catalog copy a policy or some statements about probation so that the students are clear on what's expected of them if they're not making sufficient academic progress, but more importantly, how they might address that and what the parameters will be. So Education has drafted the language that you have in their catalog changes, but they also were asked by one of the members of Grad Council to explain what it would mean to submit this petition or this statement to request readmission and how they were going to be able to demonstrate that they'd be able to step back in with some success. And so that was created and sort of attached to the packet. That form itself won't be in the catalog, but the decision I think was made by Terry Longshore, the Grad Council chair, that it would be an interesting thing for Senate to see because it really explains how this particular procedure will be operationalized. And I suspect also that he and I both have a not so hidden agenda, which is that we're hoping to inspire other graduate programs to make a similar change so that students have a lot of clarity, and that ultimately we will also be able to have some banner function support probationary status for graduate students who are no longer allowed to register without meeting with their advisor. So that's what that is.
Can I follow that up?
Sure.
So is there anything in Grad Council in general, or even in this, where if a student is not succeeding, that they are given some sort of resources in case they're having some sort of struggles in order to succeed? Or is this just a program by program?
No, that's internal to the program. I mean, Grad Council wouldn't have any purview over that any more than undergraduate curriculum committee would have in terms of a student that's not succeeding. You know, and grad students have exactly the same academic and other support structures in place as undergraduate students. I think they utilize them a little bit less because they tend to have much more contact, much more close contact with their cohorts and with their faculty advisors and their faculty. But in this particular case, as an example, yeah, they would generally draw up a plan, whether it would mean taking some additional coursework, or in some cases, there may be a practicum consideration that needs to be addressed that might need some supplementary skill building in another area or something. But that would be internal to their program. And I wouldn't feel comfortable making that a prescriptive statement either by Grad Council or for any curricular plan that any graduate program has. So I think it's a great question, and I suspect that the reason that folks already do that, but it's not codified, is the reason why we were very, well, I know that that's one of the reasons why we were very ardent about getting this particular situation in grad programs addressed, that we know what probation means and what's there to help students either come back or to know when they can't.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Jody? Not seeing any hands. All right, well, thank you, Jody. And these changes will come up in 2 weeks.
Great, thank you.
And then Jody, I'll go ahead and keep you unmuted since undergraduate curriculum is next, in case you have anything. Let me find Anna to unmute her. All right, Anna, tell us about our undergrad changes.
Yeah, we have 2 certificates that are coming up, one in holistic education and one in sound design. And then There are a bunch of course proposals for language classes that they were already teaching that we asked them to submit as new classes because they were changing them a little. And then a psychology and an undergraduate studies class as well.
Okay. And do you know, I can't tell who, do you know if any of the faculty from those programs are here to answer questions as well?
Oh, I cannot tell you that.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Well, I think we have folks from those programs, but they aren't the same folks that may have engaged with the curriculum committee around this. For example, Paul's here.
Okay.
And then, you know, with the holistic education, we're dealing with the same situation we had last time. We had a curriculum or a certificate with undergraduate and graduate curriculum. So you have me.
Okay. Well, any questions for Anna, Jody, or Paul about any of the undergraduate curriculum that is under review? And no vote today on this. This is going to be a vote for. Oh, Marianne is also here for languages.
Oh, good.
Unmute her as well. For some reason, Marianne's not unmuting. Oh, there we go. Marianne, are you there?
I am, yes.
Okay, there we go.
Confused, but I'm here.
Parker, okay, hold on, let me see. Unmute. All right.
So, Anna, I would just want to make sure I heard you correctly that the language courses, like the Spanish and French courses, you said that they were already courses that were being taught, and these are just revisions or changes, or?
Yes, let me go in there. So they were, if I remember correctly, they were taught one way. They decided to bring them to a lower level and change them so that they weren't in the language, but they were in English, but still about the culture of the language. And because it really was a new class, even though it was similar to the old class, we asked for new course proposals.
Yeah, Michael, the content, they're substantively different, you know, so they have similar sort of titles and in some cases learning outcomes, but they were really primarily different courses being taught in different ways, different modalities, and at a different level. So we said that they could not submit them as changes to courses, that they were only going to be accepted as new course proposals.
Yeah, so these will be replacements for existing courses, not additional.
Right.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Marianne, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more complicated. Can you hear me and see me? Because I'm at home now and the connection's not very good.
We can hear you. We can't see you. We see a picture of you.
You can hear me, can't see. Well, that might be for the best. Anyway, the classes being offered, we were offering French and German in addition to other languages, 101 and 102 for those who had the deficiency coming in. It was a requirement for graduation.
Marianne, are you still there?
It looks like we lost her.
We may have lost Marianne.
She's muted. She's not lost.
Oh.
Did she get muted again? No, she's not muted.
She was.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to speak faster before I get disconnected again. But basically, we were asked to offer classes that had more culture and that didn't have languages for those who needed those language classes to graduate because they would come into SOU without the 2-language requirement. And it was such, and usually they were advised poorly, honestly. And so they would take these French and German classes, 101, 102 in their senior year, wouldn't necessarily pass them because they're not that easy. And so it was a huge burden. So we were asked basically to teach culture classes instead of language classes. And as of now, there will be, as of next year, there will be no more German language classes. At least there's still some French language classes, but there's also an option that's purely cultural that you can do in addition to the language classes, but that you can take separately, and it will fulfill the requirement for the deficiency.
All right, thank you, Marianne. I also got a note from Matthew that he or Lee can answer questions. If anyone has any questions about the UGS writing portfolio class. Last call for questions about any of these courses. Oh, Brian's
is
waving his finger. That's not the protocol, Brian.
I know! Wait, I can't find all the damn files that are everywhere. So the question that I have for the UGS class is, it seems that it serves as a substitute mostly for writing 122. Is that an accurate?
I've unmuted Matthew, and then I'm looking for Lee.
Lee, yeah.
All right. There you go.
Okay, thank you. We have it's kind of an informal formal process where students can petition for a waiver for writing 122 for putting together a portfolio to demonstrate that they have the proficiencies and their backpack of knowledge. And this has gone through on a case-by-case basis. Matt Morielli has been doing them this year. Usually Deb Brown does them, but she's on sabbatical. But it wasn't really fair and equitable. Some students knew about it because SSCs were telling them about it. Some students didn't know about it, but were running up against still needing writing 122 their senior year. So now we've formalized a process. We also learned by formalizing this process that sometimes they're wanting writing 122, but they never had writing 121 because they came in and we don't offer writing 121. So it gives them an opportunity to clear this up by doing the portfolio class. And that's why you'll see that it's repeatable. They can do it for 1 credit for each of those areas. So if they need 121, they can decide to do it for 121. They can also throw 122 in there and do it for 2 credits in 1 term. But they'll be working really closely with the professor of record to decide the path that's best for them.
And so for each one of those being 1 credit, that's sufficient to meet the university study standards?
It is. It's not a replacement for the course. What it really is saying that the student comes in, they're far enough along, they're already demonstrating this work through other classes. This portfolio allows them the opportunity to demonstrate it, to have the waiver put in. They don't receive then a B strand 4 credits, something on their transcript. They receive a waiver for the B strand writing 122 course.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions about undergraduate studies? All right. Well, thank you all. We will come back to this in 2 weeks. All right. So our next agenda item is kind of a big discussion, which is basically how we approach combating some of the impacts on promotion and tenure that will inevitably result from the transitions we're having to make right now. So the 3 primary questions that have come up in advisory council that we've been discussing are spring student evals, although also there's been some concern around the winter student evals as well, around how things happened at the end of the term. Some concerns around what happens with chair and colleague evaluations for faculty who are going to be observed teaching in maybe less than ideal situations, or observing their courses in a way that's not the way they would normally teach them. And then questions around scholarly activity, especially obviously a lot of conferences being canceled this year. But there may be other kinds of impacts on scholarship and creative activity. I'm going to go ahead and preemptively unmute, I just lost him, David Bethel. Where'd you go? If I can find him, there he is. Okay. David is the chair of the faculty personnel committee, right, David?
Yep.
No,
that's correct.
And then also I invited Devora. I'm going to unmute Devora, who's one of our interinstitutional faculty senators. Devora, are you there?
I am here.
All right, great. And then I didn't see, did Donna Lane make it into the meeting?
I don't see her.
Okay, we're a little ahead of schedule, so Donna may be still joining us in a few minutes. Donna did forward some emails to me. Basically, I reached out to David, Devora, and Donna because this will probably really fall to the faculty personnel committee to figure this stuff out. But we also wanted to hear from the interinstitutional faculty senators because they were able to sort of go to some of our fellow institutions in the state and find out what they're doing. So Devora, do you want to start with what you all have learned from those other universities?
Sure. So we have heard from PSU, OSU, and Western. And so far, I will sort of read off to you some synopses of what they sent us. From OSU, what we have is that for their tenure clock, they've decided to do an extension. They explain OSU will approve automatically a 1-year extension of probationary periods for all eligible tenure track faculty who request it. All tenure track faculty who are in their probationary period during the 2020 spring term and who currently are not being reviewed in the 2019-20 cycle are eligible. And those who've already been granted a tenure clock extension for other reasons are eligible for the additional extension. Teaching evaluations at OSU, what they've decided is that given the rapid transition to remote teaching, they're not going to use them. It will be optional. And then faculty members have discretion to include or exclude those when they are doing their annual reviews and tenure reviews. From PSU, they have a very similar policy. There's a 1-year extension available, and faculty should feel free to use evaluations without concern about possible negative impacts on promotion. So those will still continue, but they won't have to be included. And then from Western, they were trying to get together a letter of agreement, and that's not been decided on entirely. But the general upshot of it is that course evaluations will be optional. And then they additionally also informed us that what they're working on is a service and scholarship online only sort of relief policy, so that scholarship, for example, because of all the changes, I mean, I was supposed to be in Prague in a month, and that's not going to happen. Oh, so awful. But anyway, so those sorts of things are on hold, and they won't be negatively impacting anyone. For peer observations at Western, they have requested that those also be put on hold for now, and that they be understood as acceptable as on hold for until the next year starts. So those are the 3 schools that I'm aware we've heard of. Donna may have additional schools as well.
All right, thank you, Devora. And I'm curious, have any of, I mean, I guess you probably not since you haven't mentioned it, but what about cases where, for instance, I know that many of our programs have requirements about, in scholarship, about presenting at a certain number of conferences. You know, is anyone looking at things like, rather than delaying a full year, if this is the only thing holding you up, if you got something accepted into a conference, but the conference ended up not happening, any kind of flexibility around things like that?
So no one has mentioned it. I will say that, for example, in my own situation, not only was I supposed to be in Prague, I was supposed to be at Western Michigan University and at the University of Texas in Dallas. And for all 3 of those conferences, I'm not bitter at all. For all 3 of those conferences, what has happened is that, you know, sort of acceptances, and I've received letters from the conferences themselves that I can use in lieu of going to the conference for promotional materials. And so it is certainly something that's on the radar for a lot of people who are hosting conferences. And though no one has explicitly said anything, Western is the closest to having a policy that they've told us about anyway. I think that that's something that might be possible.
Thank you. And David, I was curious also if, or it's not, oh, you're not the committee that deals with the teaching awards, are you? That's the faculty, that's the other one.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if there's the update on that, because that was another question that someone's sent me a question about. What's the status of the exceptional teaching award? if those observations have already happened. So we'll have to ask someone else about that. But has the faculty, oh, actually, hold on, I'm going to call on Tiffany. I'm going to unmute Tiffany because I find out that she is the chair of that. So let me find Tiffany. She can join this as well.
Hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great. So I'm actually chairing that under the Faculty Development Committee, and we've determined that we want to move forward. We want to keep spirits high, so we're going to get creative. Obviously, if you have any suggestions on how to do that and determining those awards, but we are moving forward with them.
And Tiffany, have for any of the teaching award candidates, had the teaching observations already happened, or were those all scheduled for spring?
No, they were all scheduled for spring because, I'm sure everybody saw, the deadline kept being moved back due to the lack of a lot of nominations. So therefore, no, none of them have been scheduled. Nothing's been done. So we're going to have to move to do, like I said, being very creative on how we're going to be looking at that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
That update. So David, can you say, have you all had any discussions about these questions yet? David, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a second there.
Oh, sorry. Has the personnel committee had any discussions yet about how to approach this question for promotion and tenure?
We have not yet. We have so we were right in the middle of our reviews of the current year promotion and tenure applications when things started slowing down and shutting down. And so we put those meetings a bit on hold and are actually going to be joining back up later this week to have our final discussions related to that about our current current applicants. And I don't see any. There shouldn't be any effects on our current applicants because all of those portfolios were submitted well in advance of the current situation. So we'll be proceeding as sort of a normal timeline for these. But as such, we haven't had a time to really directly discuss that. But we can in the very near future to be starting to think about what's going to be happening in coming rounds. So primarily, this will be having an impact on certainly the applications for potentially a few years out here. So starting next year, in around January, the first deadlines for the promotion and tenure. Can't imagine that there would be any. The other thing we evaluate is sabbatical applications. That there might be some impacts there, although I'm guessing they would be less pronounced than potential promotion and tenure implications.
Okay, thank you. Jesse, you had a observation that you wanted to mention?
Well, I just think if we're looking at impacts of conferences being canceled and impacts on promotion and tenure, we also need to consider that journals may be delaying publication dates, and that even some book contracts that were in the pipeline might end up being canceled as the economic fallout plays out in the publishing industry. So I think as we think about fail-safes for people who have done their scholarly due diligence, we need to consider things beyond their control, conferences and as well as publication.
Right. Yeah. And something like a canceled book is a year extension is not going to necessarily solve that problem.
Right.
Yeah. And that might be something where, it becomes one of these, these questions that probably comes up pretty regularly with this is at what level should these sort of decisions of accommodation be happening, or what is a comparable substitute? And that's something where, in the personnel committee that we are, we have a certain amount of oversight on all these things, but we're also wanting to rely on the guidelines that are put out by each of the departments in terms of what is expected for, for promotion in that area. And so that might be something, not wanting to push more work back to departments, but it might be something that there might be some sort of like a memo or something that quickly states what are some trends that you're seeing in your areas, Or this could be something that's maybe not even as formalized as that, but maybe something in that the evaluation that's coming up from the program review committees or from the chair that might be able to make a comment related to that, that sort of explicitly says, you know, hey, this was on board to be a published presentation, and the conference was canceled, and we are accepting that this letter that indicates such is acceptable in lieu of that, or whatever the approach that particular area is focusing on, might help to give some guidance, because some things are pretty obvious when they, how it can work across all departments, but some things are very specific in terms of what counts as scholarship and what types of venues are being used across campus.
Sue, I wanted to bring you into this. Are you there?
I'm here.
Wondering, do you think it might be appropriate at the chair director meetings to ask the departments to look at this in their faculty meetings? The question that David just brought up about, there are going to be some things that are very broadly common across all applications, but there might be some things that are very specific to program requirements where programs might need to make their own recommendations about how we enact certain leniency or flexibility.
Sure. I think it's important to have a process in mind as well. So I think, asking chairs to have conversations with their program faculty about expectations posted on the Provost website for each program would be a good conversation to have if it's within the context of something. So I think, if there's a process that FPC could make a recommendation about, maybe that starts with the program, and then there's a broader conversation with the various personnel committees. So you've got one either in a division, or you have program personnel committees. I mean, I think this just needs to be a robust conversation. Even though we may be talking about a couple of years, the implications are going to be realized differently, I think, for different faculty. And I think David's right. Each program will be a little bit different, even though there are common shared characteristics. So I would just say that, recommendations all the way along the way will be important, so that by the time it gets to its final resting place, everybody has at least, well, let me say, the majority of faculty and administration who are involved in this would have weighed in. And some of it's process, and some of it's good colleague dialogue and transparency.
Thank you, Sue.
And I will just add that Eastern's provost did refer this matter to their faculty personnel committee, and I think Oregon Tech is still trying to decide what they're going to do according to their provost.
So Sue, obviously DeVore has given us several examples of institutions that moved pretty quickly to put something in place. From your perspective, since the standards for promotion and tenure are in the bylaws, do we need some official Senate action to do this, or is it something that we can basically just charge faculty personnel committee to run with?
Well, it's interesting. When I spoke with the provost last week, I asked about this, and it sounded to me, and I can confirm this with the provost who spoke, it sounded like Oregon State and Western already had sort of a prescriptive sort of policy that, I don't know if it was about, disasters specifically, but there seemed to be something very quickly that they were able to put into place. So it might have been, something that existed in their bylaws already. The University of Oregon was a little more philosophical. The provost there, it sounded like it was more of an in the moment dialogue with the faculty, although I can confirm that. I can't find anything. I've scoured the bylaws and every other document that might be relevant, but I can't find anything at all, or even precedent-setting, policy that we could rely on. So, that was a long answer, but we obviously can't take all year to figure this out, and I'm happy to take recommendations and work with everybody collaboratively to help make this move along.
Thank you, Sue. And I'll just highlight that this was in the kind of first weeks that even the possibility of having to shut down campus came up. Advisory Council was discussing this in email, and Sue has been adamant that obviously we don't want faculty to be impacted negatively, and that flexibility, that she's committed to flexibility here. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out how we do it and what we need to do, not a question of if we need to do it. So I appreciate your commitment to that, Sue. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts or insights you all want to contribute to this conversation? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Lena, hold on. Lena is raising her hand.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question since I'm not a senator, but
Sure.
I was just wondering, since we heard something from, I think it was the provost, saying that it's okay if we change our learning outcomes just a little bit in our courses, given the situation this spring term. How will that kind of trickle down in terms of assessment, programmatic assessment and accreditation?
Well, I can defer to Jody if looks like she's still on the video. We talked about adjusting program outcomes relative to the remote delivery, and I think that's what you're referring to, Alina, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Much of this happened so quickly that what we were trying to do was give faculty, rather than try to, fit a square peg into a round hole or whatever that is, to try to match the course objectives with the pedagogy, actually. And I think that's where we started that conversation. And Jody, I don't know, I think I'm fine with the accreditation piece. We've done some pretty good due diligence on that. I don't know about the assessment piece.
Jody, are you there?
I am. Yeah, so in terms, there's a twofold answer to this. In terms of the accreditation piece, the accreditor is being very flexible and very generous. In fact, they encouraged us to be, quickly responsive and to go ahead and allow for courses to be altered in ways that we wouldn't have necessarily anticipated, nor to require that they go through regular curriculum approval procedures. I think if this situation extends much further, that'll change a little bit. Their one requirement is that we needed to make sure that we have learning outcomes communicated to students very clearly, and we may, in fact, be asked to document that in upcoming reports or in our Year 7, I'm not sure. In terms of assessment, there shouldn't be a lot of ways that this will impact what programs do, other than needing to perhaps account for some outcomes not being relevant in this particular term. When reports are going to be written in the fall, and we started to make these alterations to our academic support program, templates and rubrics, we'll make space for folks to account for what happened this year. It's extraordinary. So larger programmatic goals and larger programmatic objectives may fall away a little bit this term, but the overall continued attempt to gather data and to use data in ways that help achieve institutional and programmatic evaluation won't change. So the way that I think assessment will be impacted is that the general dynamic of having outcomes and assessing how well those outcomes were both presented to the students as well as assessed at the assignment or the outcome level it is still a dynamic that should be in play every time somebody steps into the classroom and offers curriculum and offers to teach a course. And, you know, we'll make a way to capture that when reports are due in the fall.
Thank you, Jody. Elena, does that cover it?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. I think I saw Devora had her hand up again. Devora, you there?
I'm here, but I actually didn't raise my hand.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Well, I must have missaw something. And Brian wanted to ask a question about colleague evals. Let me find where Brian is hiding on this list. Oh, there we go. He's up at the top.
So the question I have is, I guess this would be for the Senate really, is a part of the promotion and tenure process is we have to have a colleague evaluation that is fresh. And I know that we have, at least in my program, we have 2 colleague evaluations, one even for myself, which was scheduled for the spring. And as we all know, we have no idea what fall's gonna look like. So, I mean, we have upwards of 3 people that will be applying for promotion in the next, that have the ability to apply for promotion next year. And if we are, you know, no longer having face-to-face, or we're jamming 3 colleague evaluations in the fall term, I think that Senate needs to, you know, as a part of this COVID-19 response, is discuss how we want to attack colleague evaluations for the P&T process, especially next year.
Yeah, I agree. I have a colleague evaluation. I'm doing a colleague evaluation this term myself, and it's going to be pretty challenging. Kimball, did you have a thought you want to follow up on?
Yeah, I've been trying to decide what and how much I wanted to say. I don't think it's going to be possible for us to group think a total solution to this. There's just too much else going on. But I did think there's kind of a short run concern that I was hoping that maybe Sue would be willing to address in this way. Now, I just think faculty needs some reassurance that I'm talking about faculty who are affected in the promotion tenure process here in any way, that the university is going to try to make a reasonable accommodation. I think just a message on that note and on that topic only to all faculty would be a useful thing. And then as far as the long run, you know, I think David Bethel was right that we don't really need to have a full solution for most of this until at the earliest fall. And it seems like a good process would be for Sue and the chairs and the personnel committee to work together to, and maybe call for all of us for some brainstorming to get some ideas about specific things that we are comfortable doing to help reassure that faculty who through no fault of their own won't be able to do some of the things that they had hoped to do and intended to do as part of their promotion package.
So any comments on that?
Well, I'm absolutely committed to, working with faculty to find a solution, and I don't have one in mind. That's why I asked my colleagues at the other institutions, and they were generally in the same place. But I don't think there's any provost who wants to tell the faculty what they should do. So that's why I'm trying to gather as much feedback as I can. This is our first conversation. Obviously, we had a little bit of a conversation at AC. You know, I have been reading about this. This is a national conversation. This isn't just ours. And it's you're asking all the right questions. The course evaluations seem to be sort of in 2 camps. Let's just don't do them, or let's do them and then allow faculty to use them at their discretion. I don't see a third option out there that's rising to the top as much as those 2 are. So I'll say that. Definitely extensions make sense to me. So I'd love to hear what the different sort of buckets of that would look like. The colleague evaluation issue came up today in a conversation. It struck me immediately that we're simply going to be scrambling for next year to try to get something done this year. And Brian's right, they're supposed to be within 2 years of when you go up. So my thought was, wow, if the stars all align properly and we're all back in the fall, then that would be like the number one thing people would have to think about, right? Like right out of the gate. And I don't know we don't know what we don't know as far as fall term is concerned. So you are asking all the right questions, and I am all ears and want to reassure you that negative impact is absolutely first and foremost on my mind. I don't know if that gets to Kimball's request, and I'm happy to put something, in an email that recognizes that we're going to be having this conversation, that chairs and colleagues need to weigh in. Each program might be a little different in where they land, but writ large, I am absolutely in your corner to make the right decisions.
Thank you, Sue.
So
Devorah, you do. Well, Devorah had her hand up. Can I ask Devorah?
Well, I'm on the same I want to follow up on my own question.
Okay.
If I could,
go ahead.
please.
Go ahead.
Sue, and I think everything you said is just fine. I was just thinking that, as you pointed out, you put a lot of stuff in that previous email, and it might be nice to have one simple message, and it can be pretty non-committal, but just, hey, we're thinking about this, the Senate's talking about it, I think it would be reassuring to those faculty. So that was my recommendation.
Sure, I want to reassure faculty. I mean, I get it.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Devorah.
Oh, hey, Campbell, is it okay? Can I talk now? I'm just kidding. Sue, thank you. And all of this will be very helpful for me when I go to report to IFS. So you've all given me a whole lot that I can share with everyone else. One thing I wanted to sort of point out, though, is that what we've been talking about with regard to the student evaluations, it seems reasonable additionally to potentially not hold those student evaluations to the same standard, given the conversations we've been having across the universities about sort of putting aside those student evaluations for other reasons as well. So I just wanted to sort of add that in there too.
Thank you. In fact, I think there's still, our hope is to bring forward the task force proposal on student evaluations this term. So we might even have a new process approved this term. So that is definitely something we're still continuing to look at. All right, well, we are out of time on this topic, but Sue's waving somewhere. Hold on.
I just wanted to mention that we should probably check with Matt Stillman and make sure that we can operationalize that given the fact that we're, a little off our schedule for spring term. And on that note, I did want to add that we are going in the direction that Kimball recommended, so that the final week of spring break will not be a traditional finals week. And I know the finals week schedule is still showing, but we will make the changes for that shortly. So it will be if you want to give a final, that's up to you, but it's going to be within the context of a regular instructional week.
Thank you, Sue.
Sure, thank you.
All right, well, we're out of time for this topic for now, but I'm sure we will continue to come back to it, and I'm sure an advisory council will continue to talk about it as well. I wanted to kick off announcements and new business by welcoming back Precious Yamaguchi. I don't know, Precious, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Sorry. Welcome you back. How's it going?
It's good. Thank you. Happy to be back.
Thanks. Any other announcements or new business? Raise your hand if you have announcements or new business. Not seeing anything. Oh, wait, Ellen, hold on. Ellen, go ahead.
Aren't you also going to welcome back Michael Parker?
Oh, where is he? Hold on. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder.
Like
Welcome back, Michael Parker.
Going up, that bastard.
Sorry, well, your sign has been at the table the entire time, so all right. Melissa.
Yes, I just wanted to quickly announce the provost's email that Andrew sent out had a lot of information about the library, but just in case somebody didn't read that far and get the library part, the library is open. We do have reduced hours and some limited services, but we are open, and we are especially available for consultations, for Zoom visits. We can scan chapters of books and send them to you electronically. We can do that for students. We've got a whole bunch of new resources that are available just because of the COVID-19 situation. Some of them are really cool things that we can't normally afford, so we're pretty excited to have those even for a limited amount of time. And we are also offering tutoring online. So the tutoring services that students already use, the math and science and writing, is all still available, and we've got a new process in place to deliver that online. So please spread the word about all these things. The library is open, even if much of it is now virtual, and same thing with tutoring.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Last call for announcements of new business. Any other comments? All right, well, thank you all. I think we survived our first Senate Zoom meeting. I have to say it was slightly more exhausting for me than usual, but I appreciate your patience with navigating this. And also a big thank you to Clay for all your help, Clay. I really appreciate it. Clay was working with me all weekend to make sure that we were prepared for this. So next time you see Clay, when you're allowed to, give him a hug. So thank you all. I'm going to officially adjourn the meeting by stopping